All right, excellent. Well, welcome everybody. My name's Tim Adams. I'll be kind of moderating this hangout, and I wanted to just start with obviously welcoming you guys, and also just letting you know that the purpose of this hangout is kind of two and threefold. One, to get to know each other better, because at this point we're just kind of faces on a page, right? And we also, I feel it's important that as a community, we kind of set up an infrastructure right now that when we need to get an issue solved or to get help troubleshooting, we have that structure in place already. We come back and we're like, hey, throw it out to the community. I really would like to hang out and get some help here. We can respond to that. And then finally, just to also be backing each other up and encouraging one another when we're getting discouraged. So I want to thank Jeremy for kind of supporting me in this idea and this concept, and would just really love to dive into an issue. But I'm not sure if the gentleman is here that was looking for a projector.
No, not yet.
He's not here. Okay.
Nope.
In that case, let's just do some quick introductions. How about that? Paul, why don't we start with you?
Okay. My name's Paul Allen Clifford. I'm hearing a lot of echo. Did someone just unmute?
No, I don't hear it.
Okay, I'm going to take this out for just a second.
Yeah.
So my name is Paul Allen Clifford, and I am the owner of TrinityDigitalMedia.com, and I do live webcasts 5 days a week at 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific on ChurchTechCast.com, providing free training for churches. I've been doing tech for over a decade at my church, and I'm a volunteer there. So I do writing, consulting, all that fun jazz. And I'm author of 3 books right now, and a few more that are in the pipeline.
Awesome. Very cool. Glad to have
Who gets to follow that?
My goodness, that's quite a handful, Paul.
Is anyone else hearing that echo?
I'm
Nope,
not.
it's just you.
Sorry you're hearing that, Paul. Steve, why don't you tell us?
Oh, it was the Hangout on air.
I'm Steve Mindrup, and I have written no books. I guess that's my follow-up to that one. I am a graphic designer by day, graphic and web designer by day. I've been doing church tech for maybe 10 or 15 years now, and doing that now, just volunteering and serving. Really, my passion's more on the graphic end of things, but I certainly do what I can there for our church. But right now our needs are a lot in the, kind of the live service and production areas. So doing a lot there. Other than that, spending time with my family and is what I love to do. So.
Excellent. Appreciate that. TC, you're up.
Yeah, so I think I might be the new guy here. I've never met Steve, but I already don't like him because he stole my joke. Paul, I've seen around in a couple of the circles. I know you do the webcasting thing. I've been meaning to jump in there, but I haven't yet. Jeremy, you and I have talked a lot. We're in the same town, actually, but we've never actually met face-to-face. And Tim, first time I've seen your face, man, so good to meet you. But yeah, my name is TC. I am in Colorado Springs. Volunteer at my church, youth ministry, resident nerd, trying to keep as much of the tech stuff going as I can in the few hours a week that I have. I am full-time in the Air Force, and I own a computer and a webcam and a mic, and I have a blog that I post to about once a quarter. That's about it.
Fantastic. Well, first off, TC, I want to thank you for your service in the Air Force. I have a brother. My oldest brother is actually a major in the Army, so I certainly understand the sacrifices that you guys make, sometimes on a daily basis. So thank you for your service. Well, it kind of seems like that other guy has not joined us yet. So I'm wondering maybe if I should probably introduce myself. I'm Tim Adams. I own a company, a video production company called Tomato Productions, and I do corporate video. I also do wedding photography and videography, and then I do media ministry consulting. And I have been working in church tech for much of the last 15 years. There's about a 6-month gap there in there, but I have done it all: audio, video, lighting, projection. I've done 2 9-day, 3-city tours. We basically set up for 3 days in one location, and then we had an overnight turnaround, and we had to set up and be operating again the next night in a totally different city. So we did, that was crazy. So anyway, I have a passion for media. I don't think that there is any excuse to have poor quality tech in a church environment, and I think that's just a lack of training and support from the leadership of the church. So I'm very protective of my fellow techs. When I'm doing my consulting, I usually sit down with the leadership and make sure that they understand that tech is not something to be taken advantage of, and it's certainly not anything to take for granted. So that is where I'm coming from. Jeremy?
Yeah, sorry, I'm behind the scenes, so I'm doing other things as well. And I have this great Japanese way behind video. Apparently my computer, I dropped it one too many times. So when I stop talking, you just interrupt me. And also, first of all, before I go into it, Steve, Tim, you guys said you do graphic design, media stuff. Are you guys doing freelance things that people can contact you, or is it more of a corporate approach that they just need to have their corporation contact you guys?
Steve, go ahead.
Yeah, I actually I work for a company in Tampa, just a secular time day job. As far as freelance goes, I don't do much of it because I try to spend that time with my family, but a very limited basis, although I'm not really focusing on that right now, aside from my own church and a select couple of missionaries that I know personally. So I keep it pretty close right now.
Cool.
For myself, I own a company, so I'm freelance, and I also do work with corporate entities, if you will, and nonprofits. So I would say yes to both of your questions.
Sure.
Or both of your question.
Cool. So I'm Jeremy Smith. I'll get the address that's on the screen, as well as Church Mag and a host of other websites. But my main job, my full-time job, has been with Youth for Christ. The past 10 years I was doing youth ministry with kids, where it started out in Ohio, and then I moved to the Air Force Academy here in Colorado Springs, and now I've transitioned into a job doing the social media or the ministry as a global approach, as well as trying to help local ministries within the Youth for Christ network to be able to engage well on social media and blogging, and just to be able to figure out what that means as they engage with kids, their parents, the community, the schools, everybody else that is possibly involved in this process. So it's an interesting approach, and I'm getting to enjoy every challenge that comes with social media.
Excellent, excellent. So we've all introduced each other. Well, we've introduced ourselves, not each other. And I'm kind of curious what you guys see as emerging trends, or what do you see as real hurdles that church tech teams have to get over on a weekly basis. Steve, why don't you start us off on that?
Oh man, good. The first guy. As far as emerging tech goes, our demographic is somewhat tech savvy, but not extremely so. So we try and keep some of that pretty light, just because some people won't get it. I'm seeing as far as live video feeds coming into a service, we've been starting to do that, and that seems to be kind of really picking up and catching on. People I think expect a lot more when it comes to what you offer on the web, because they see it every day from the corporate world. Everything you get handed from print to web to what kind of digital media you can walk away with. I think there's a much higher expectation there for quality. As far as challenges go, I can really only speak to kind of where we are and the challenges we see. Volunteers, you got guys that or gals giving of their time, and to do things well, if you hold a high standard, takes a lot of time and effort. And sometimes that could pull you away from your families and those things, when you're there ministering. So just kind of keeping a good spirit moving forward can sometimes be a challenge. Our pastor actually said recently, I think is a huge challenge with tech, at least, in the church in general, is people don't like two things. They don't like it when things stay the same, and they don't like it when things change. So trying to move forward with technology, people want to see things improving and moving forward, but they don't want stuff to change on them. So kind of trying to lead that and help people through that really is a weekly challenge.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's a really hard balance to strike, and I've seen in my own experience churches really struggling with, okay, when is it? We know that we need to upgrade, but when is the right time to pull that trigger? And I've also seen churches completely disintegrate because the entire church, well, not structure, but the entire service, changes. So it goes from a very traditionally oriented service to more of a modern and upbeat and with a worship team and all that, and they get rid of the organ, and the people just, they don't know how to handle that because, again, leadership did not prepare them for that, and they were not part of that discussion, perhaps. So, yeah, I certainly feel you there. TC, what are you thinking?
So our church, we're a kind of medium-sized church in Colorado Springs, which is the land of 1,000 churches. Our pastor really strongly wants to move into broadcast media. Now he's not talking on the level of, say, over the air or over radio, but he really badly wants to get into at least a video service that is projected up onto our screens so that people get a better look at what's going on stage. And also it's recorded so they can be distributed to places like retirement homes, or we have service members overseas that could go out to them, things like that. What I have presented to him, some of the other pastors, is that in my time, say in the last 2 years that I've been watching internet churches, I see there's a spectrum out there as far as, say, quality and production value go. There's you've got everything from the guy on YouTube that sets up an old VHS in the middle of the sanctuary and gets himself, right, and then he doesn't know how to get that tape onto the internet. He can't fit that tape into his computer, so he takes his webcam and holds it in front of the TV and plays back the VCR tape, and then puts that on the web, and it just looks atrocious, right? Because he's holding it crooked and all kinds of stuff. And then you've got places like Elevation and Life Church and those places that are really on the forefront of internet broadcast church that have these multi-tens to $100,000 setups that only 2% of churches in America can even afford or have the people educated enough to man and to execute. So what I've been telling them is, you don't want to look like this guy, but you don't have the money to do this guy. I intensely feel there's a middle ground to be struck that many churches are not exploiting, and that's the world of high-def, Sony handycams. They have HDMI out. They can go to a computer with an HDMI in, say, a capture card from Blackmagic, even though I think pitching a brand called Blackmagic to a pastor might be a little iffy. But you get it into the computer, and I've tested this in our services with some of our existing equipment. I've ran Hangouts on air with our church service using overlay stuff like you see over here that I've got, like all this weird things going on over here on my screen that I can use and put things up on the screen. I got us on-air broadcasting, and as you know, with on-air Hangouts, it automatically records to your YouTube account, so you can just download that, do some post-production, burn it to a disk, and then ship that out to people. I did all that without spending a dime in our church, just using the church's existing equipment and my own laptop and some software that I already had. The projected cost I put together for the church to get a 2-camera setup, streaming, with enough software to do the post-production and the live stuff, I estimated to come out to about $6,000. The previous quote they got from a different guy was on the order of about $30,000. So I think that's one of the places churches are missing, is this middle ground of consumer-level electronics and consumer-level equipment, and using the free Google infrastructure that honestly is pretty phenomenal and flexible.
Well, and I even think that the biggest part about all this with church tech people is that our budgets and the cost that we have is so much greater than, I mean, if you think about youth ministry, what is youth ministry incurring costs?
Right.
Every couple of weeks they want to have pizza or get some soda or some props for their game, and that's what, $50 here, $100 there, and then we throw one little thing out there like a $6,000 budget, and everybody freaks out because it's not something that they can necessarily just jump into, but it would be a great investment. And so I totally agree. I think that that's a tough aspect for church tech people to be able to advocate for their ministry as well as to advocate for their church and try to be able to break down those walls and to try to be able to actually invest in what the church is really trying to do with their ministry.
Yeah, I'd certainly agree. Paul, sorry, I cut you off.
Well, I was going to say, I think that we have a problem as tech people, that we think that what we do is expensive, but it's not. Look at the price of an organ. What does a pipe organ cost? And many traditional churches don't bat an eye at, oh, well, we've got to pay for a new organ, and yet they won't pay for a good computer to do something that actually is the modern way of communicating. I think that if we spend all of our time apologizing, oh, I'm so sorry, this software costs $500, so we probably can't get that, then of course we're not going to get it because we started out apologizing. I think we need to cast the vision. This is the way that we interact with people in the 21st century. I'm sorry if you think that the way that we interact with people is the way we did it in the 19th century. It just isn't. And I hate that because it's easier to do things the old way. But this is just the way that it is. And I don't like video and technology because they're cool and neat. I like them because they're part of an overall plan to change lives and eternities. And so I think that's a good place to start, is not apologizing.
Let me tell you how I pitched it then, right? Because I think you'll like this. One Tuesday night, I also play in one of the worship bands. So one Tuesday, I got there really early, and I set up the camera in the auditorium in the sanctuary, right? Set up all the equipment, got it streaming, pointed it at the stage, right? And then I logged into the Hangout with my tablet. Took that up to the office, grabbed a couple of the pastors. I said, hey, check this out, hold this. And they looked at it, and all they see is like this image of our stage, right? I said, just hold that for a minute. And then I ran downstairs, jumped up on the stage, waved at him, and started talking to him a little bit. And then I ran back up to the office. They go, what was that? I said, that was me streaming our church live on the internet for no cost. And that was, and so I understand your examples there, but I've actually not encountered any kind of issues, and I think it is because, like you said, because I pitch it with confidence and with stuff they can see, not stuff they have to imagine.
Well, and I think
Yeah,
that there is pushing
that's
some stuff.
absolutely the way to do it.
I think as far as pushing stuff like this, that the hard part about all of this is that everything we do costs money. And I get that you can do a lot of free services, and there's a lot of great stuff with that, but there are limitations to almost all of the services. Even Google Plus, there is a limit in how you can do this. If you want to be able to stream it and be able to put it onto your website, you actually have to, if you're going to use the YouTube live stream, you have to have so many subscribers, and for a lot of churches, that's not an option. And so you have to go with a paid service. But
So has that changed?
What's that?
Has that changed? Because you used to be able just to take your YouTube channel's embedded code and put that on your website from the YouTube page that was streaming the Hangout on air.
If you do a Hangout on
Not-
air, yes, but most people actually, it's a better service if you use the YouTube live streaming. And Paul, you can even speak into this personally here in a second, but
Okay.
if you have the appropriate approach to it, I think that if you don't meet the qualifications for it, you do have to pay with a different service. Now, I think this leads really well into, I think it's Paul Harris is the guy that asked the question of how does he ask his pastor for the right, or putting together the right budget and the right approach to asking the church to upgrade the projectors. And the reality is, for me personally, when you do something like this, is if you're asking to do something, it's because you have a conviction that it needs to be there. It's not because it's cool and new and awesome. If that were the case, every church would be bankrupt. But you're wanting to do it with excellence, and so if you're doing something for free just because it's free and you can get by with that, then you're doing it wrong. If you can do it for free and do it excellently, then you're doing it right. But if you go with a projector that's cheap, and it breaks in a year, you're actually going to probably pay more, or you're going to cost your one service that it breaks down, and then the next service you need to get a whole new system and you're frantically running. So I prefer actually going with the paid stuff if it means I'm doing something with excellence.
Mhm.
Paul, did you have
I
anything?
agree. Remember, when you buy something, you are not buying it for today. This is a big mistake that churches make all the time, is they buy for today. But you're not buying for today. You're buying for tomorrow, next week, next month, next year. So it drives me crazy when I hear churches say, now should we go widescreen? Okay, in 5 years, do you think that you should be widescreen at that point? Do you plan on upgrading your projector between now and 5 years from now? If the answer is yes, then that's a valid question. But if you're thinking, hey, I'm going to have this projector for 5-10 years, then that's not a valid question. It's an obvious answer. You buy for what you want it to be until the next time you upgrade. So I think that's absolutely the case. I also think that you're right, Jeremy, that there are free services that can accomplish what you're doing. But one thing that I wrote an article on Church Mag about this, that there are some limitations that at least make the proposal for a paid service that makes it a lot easier, because otherwise you're paying in time. Because the free YouTube service, to get that on your website, that's sometime every week, week in and week out, that you've got to put in a new code and make sure that it's right and tested and all that, where it could be that your church would be fine with paying a certain sum a month, and there's a service that would do that where you set it up and you never have to think about it again, and it just looks great all the time. And then you're saving your own time, because time is life. Don't forget that.
Sure, I think that's awesome. So I haven't written up an official proposal yet to go up to give the different courses of action. So I would like to hear more about that. I guess outside of this chat, and get some ideas on that.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think TC, you did it right in that, it's a great sales technique. You put the product in somebody's hand and let them touch and feel how that's going to work, and it's a lot easier to communicate an idea when they're experiencing it. I know we've hit some, because we have a lot of changes. We're growing rapidly. We're having to adapt and think beyond where we are, and some things it might be easy for me to see down the road that we need, leadership, or some of the other ministry leaders may not see. Sometimes you just have to kind of take the initiative, figure out a way to put it in their hands or put it in front of them, and they can kind of connect the dots and go, oh wow, that does sound a lot better, or that looks a lot better. We firmly believe in, Jeremy, you said it, doing things with excellence. We're representing, an almighty God, not just some company. And I think, when you can show them, hey, we can do this with excellence, and we can do it, on a budget, I think it makes some of those pieces easier, maybe not less painful, but you can still move forward.
Yeah, I like what Stephen Furtick says. He says we're presenting the best message in the world. It deserves the best presentation.
Absolutely. That's some awesome awesome dialogue, guys. I really appreciate that. Moving on, Paul, you want to take a stab at those two emerging trends and common hurdles?
Yeah, I think there is a money hurdle. I think there's a perception that everything tech will cost a lot more money than they want to spend, and I think that isn't necessarily the case, as TC has pointed out, that there are sometimes where you can get by with a lot less than people think. But I also think that there are some developing trends that I'm not seeing a lot about, but I think that we need to quit thinking of contemporary as contemporary. Contemporary is no longer avant-garde or on the cutting edge. That's traditional. Think about the music today. How often do you hear rock and roll versus hip-hop and rap? That is more on the cutting edge. Dance is more on the cutting edge. And the church, which is really proud of herself that we've finally made it to the 1980s, really needs to even step beyond that. And I know that that's kind of a little crazy. Now, that doesn't even begin to touch on social media, on interacting with people online and drawing them into community when they can't get to your church, but for some reason they want to be a part of your church. There's a guy in Florida that wants to be a part of our church, but he lives in Florida and we're in Lexington, Kentucky. So we're working on systems and ways to develop community online, and also, of course, we don't want to discourage him from going local as much as possible. He just hasn't found the right community. So in the meantime, how do we grow him and fold him into community even though he's several states away? So that's another challenge that I think we're going to see more and more of, where people say, oh, you're exactly the church I want, only you're on the other side of the country. And so how do we deal with that?
Well, and I put it as, I love analogies, and that's why I'm a youth worker, but the idea of having, I call it the marinara sauce and pasta theory, where if you go to a Walmart, if you live in the U.S. and you go to a Walmart, you can get a lot of free or cheap stuff from the Walmart's brands. And if you buy the Walmart brand pasta, it's no different than any other pasta there, and it's between 10 cents and almost $1 cheaper for most of the different pasta you get. But as a part of that entire process and the outcome of it, the marinara sauce, if you get the Walmart brand marinara sauce, good luck eating it because it's disgusting. And so for me, I personally go with the premium, or I make it my own. And if you talk to Eric Dye, he has a great recipe. Go talk to him about it. We had a long conversation about this. But the idea that you really need to understand what it is that you're using, research the product, and if you can go for the cheap Walmart brand pasta, do it. But sometimes you need to go for the premium sauce that goes with it, because otherwise the outcome is really just going to be so terrible that why did you even do it in the first place?
That's a good point.
Absolutely.
It's a very good point. Jeremy, did you have anything to add to this two-pronged discussion?
Sure. I think that, especially since I live in the world of social media, it helps that that's usually what I'm talking with people about, and a lot of my discussions are on people wanting to go into social media but not necessarily knowing why they want to be in social media, as well as wanting to do social media well and they have a purpose but they don't have a strategy to something like that, and just be able to walk through that process with them and to take their vision and heart and passion that's within the church and to be able to make that something that I think every church can use social media well. I don't think every church can do social media well along with every single other thing that's on their plates. And so it's a list of priorities, a list of intentionality, and there's just so much going on within their life that I think that when you have those dialogues and to figure it out, I think that that's a great first step in all this. And so I encourage churches to consider blogging and social media, but to make it a priority. And I always use this analogy: if you don't have the money for it, get rid of your donut ministry once a month, where you're making all of your congregation happy, and invest in something that you're making your entire community know about your church and get to hear the gospel. And to be able to do something with excellence like I was talking about, but to be able to go a step further than what you were thinking and engage with your community. So for me, that's where I live, but there's a lot of conversations I'm having.
Good. Man, this is like a gold mine. I'm so glad you guys are all interacting, and it's exactly what I envisioned. If I could add my 2 cents to the discussion, I'm not really seeing any emerging trends in my area other than churches are trying to copy other churches. With that being said, I see my one client of mine. We just did a dual projection system for them, and they wanted it because they saw it at another church, and so they said, well, let's get that at our church, and so they brought me in. They were talking about doing like 85-inch TVs at one point, which is just ridiculous, but they had an idea of what budget they wanted to spend because that's what this other church spent. And I don't have to tell you guys that situation. We probably all had to deal with that at one point in our lives. You say you have a pastor that went to another church and they said, oh, well, they had this and this and this, and we need that, right? We've all had to deal with that. So the other thing that I come across quite a bit is pastors and leaders telling me, well, they're just volunteers. We can't expect too much of them. We can't push them too much. And on one hand, I can agree with that to a certain degree. But on the other hand, I have to turn around and say, we're in a church environment. We're here for God. If we can't give our best for God, then why are we even serving? And for me, that's a lack of leadership again. That's a lack of them casting the vision, keeping the vision in front of the team, and saying, look, this is how important you are. This is what your effect on the world is. This is your piece, your very critically important piece of this larger machine. And it's almost like that's a reminder for them, because at one point they knew that, but they've gotten so lost in their daily lives that they've lost sight of that. And so a lot of times, as consultants, as techs in our own churches, we have to almost constantly remind our leaders that there is this vision that we need kept in front of us, and it needs to be kept in front of them. So that's what I'm seeing. Anybody else?
Well, let me tag on that just a little bit, because I think that this is probably one of the greatest leadership mistakes that I see in churches is not calling people up to doing more. And my church is exactly the opposite, and that's probably why I feel passionately about this, is that I know who I would be if I didn't have people in my life that said, well, why can't you stay just a little bit longer to make that happen? And that's just something that I see a lot. And I don't believe that they don't think I have a family, because they know my family. And whenever there was a crisis in my family, they just were helping like crazy with it. But they're not afraid to ask me a question and let me say no, as opposed to saying, no, he won't say yes to it, and then I never had a chance to say yes. So my pastor calls that not saying someone's no for them. Give them the opportunity to say no. Sell the vision hard, because lives and eternities are hanging in the balance. People are still going to hell. People are still dying without Jesus. People are having horrible lives that they don't have to live, and if they just knew about who Jesus is, that would save them. And if I stay an extra hour a week and that helps, that's nothing. The idea, oh, well, he's just a volunteer. I don't think of myself as a volunteer. I think of myself as staff that just doesn't get paid. And so when I take time off, I actually think of it as I'm taking vacation time, like I would from a job. I don't think of it as, oh, well, I'm just a volunteer. I can be there or not be there anytime I want. And I'd love to see more churches develop that attitude in their volunteers, that this matters, so I'm going to ask. Then if they say no, that's fine, but I'm at least going to ask.
Yeah, and I think for me, one of the biggest things in youth ministry is, as the leader, you never say just a volunteer. And when your volunteers will say that, because they will say something along the lines, you correct them and saying, no, you're the backbone of this ministry, you help out. Another big part of my focus with church technology is that out of every single part of the ministry, I feel like church technology has the best capacity to help disciple people as they go along. And I don't even know if Church Mag has come out with this article, so I'm just going to repeat it, and this is an insider look at what this looks like. But the worship team, you're focused on your instrument, whether that's your voice or guitar. If you're on the welcoming committee, it's more about saying hello to people, making them feel comfortable. If you're working with the toddlers, it's about poop training and protecting the kids. But if you're working with church tech, you are always interacting with each other. You're always setting things up before and after. You get to see what the whole church looks like. And if you're able to bring in people that maybe haven't made that leadership commitment somewhere, and they're just a volunteer for the church tech team, if they're just helping out one Sunday a month, the reality is that they're doing a lot more. And if you're a leader on that team, you can really invest in them. Every single time you accidentally make a mistake on the soundboard and everybody glares at you, you forget to hit the next slide for the worship songs, you can go up to them, encourage them, you can help them out. Even in the time where you're doing all the setup, you can pray before everything happens. You can invest in this person, allow them to take ownership, hear their ideas, and try to put them into action, help them actually make an impact for the ministry. And I see church technology as the place to do discipleship, and to not just make it a volunteer process, but to allow the entire process to be growing leaders. And for me, that was very much the case, where my youth worker saw some tech potential in me and said, here's the technology department, why don't you run with it, and I will support whatever you want to do that you think is best.
That's a good leader. TC, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, just real quick, one of the biggest linchpins, one of the biggest weak points in the armor, I think, of the church tech, reliance on Apple products. Just going to say it. I'm going to be that guy.
Uh-oh.
I'm going to have to ask you to clarify that.
Well, I would be willing to wager I'm probably the only guy in the Hangout right now not on a Mac.
I'm going to have to chime in here. I'm not either, so.
Oh, I'm not alone. Hey, Steve, you know what? I like you now. So you've redeemed yourself from stealing my joke. No, so one of the big things...
You know, I was with Windows for a long time.
Yeah, I owned a MacBook about 3 months ago for a solid week. I gave it a whole week to impress me, and it didn't, so I took it back. But one of the things I did kind of soft pitch.
He'd take back a Ferrari too.
Probably would actually, because I'd really have to ask Martin. But no, in my soft pitch, I told him, I said, listen, you don't need a $1,800 iMac to do this, or a $2,000 Mac Pro to do this. I said, I'm doing it because we're relying on the Google infrastructure and our ISP's backbone. I said the processing power on what I was doing at least was really low, and the software requirement. But then also, I could not find for the Mac a decent, or actually, I'll take it back. I could not find, period, a capable virtual webcam overlay system other than Minicam, which only had its free version out, which has a watermark. So the main reason I took my MacBook back was because I couldn't do this that I'm doing right now on my Mac the way I like to do it. So I pitched the Windows side of it, as much as that's a Media Shout. So I've heard of but never used Media Shout. We have ProPresenter at my church, and I don't know that ProPresenter will act as a virtual webcam. Will Media Shout do that? It will? Okay. Oh,
Yeah,
it
well,
will not.
the way that you have had talked about the setup is you wanted it to be on the video as it was going live, and so the way that ProPresenter and Media Shot work is that you have to go through the computer, and if you're the person I remember in this conversation, it didn't work the way that you wanted it to. You want it to be seamless and live, and Media Shout ProPresenter will do those things where you can have live overlays, have live lower thirds, all those different things that you want. But if you're the person that had the setup where you wanted the video and go straight to the output, that there wasn't that latency issue going on, that there wasn't a possible lag, that it wouldn't have worked with your situation, and a PC alternative with a specialized software option would have been available.
Right. So where cost might be an issue, I would prefer to go with an $800 Windows machine than the $1,200 to $1,800 Mac. So anyway, I just like to pick on Apple people. It's kind of a hobby.
I will say that I don't think that unless you're doing video editing or graphic design with a computer, or you've bought into the whole Mac ecosystem, what's the point of getting an Apple product besides, hey, look, I got Apple?
I actually wanted to. I just very lightly on my own, all the overlays that I have here, except for my parental advisory, which I ripped off somewhere else. But all these other ones, I mean, I know they're very simple for you guys. They're probably pros. But this is highly advanced stuff for me. And I did that stuff in GIMP. And then
which runs on a Mac?
It is on a Mac, you're right. And I had it on my Mac, and it worked really well on the Mac. But it didn't work any better than Windows. But then my videos that I have on my YouTube channel, the little bumpers I use, which again I understand are not as pro as some of you guys could do, but it's really good for me. I did with a piece of software called TrackAxe PC, which is video editing software for Windows platform where the PC comes from. And it cost me, I think it was on sale when I got it, it was $30. I think regular price is about $60. And from what I've played with After Effects and some of the Adobe stuff, on my level, it does everything except for the pre-canned built-in effects and transitions. Like, it has it all there, but you have to program it yourself. So maybe the user friendliness is a little less, but the cost is a lot less. So in my world, that's a big thing.
Well, I could do exactly what you can do with your $30 software for free on a Mac. It's called iMovie. Comes with every Mac.
So I had iMovie on my Mac, and it stunk compared to the software. I hated it. I tried it for like a good 2 days, and it felt like I was playing with Windows Movie Maker all over again. So
I'm gonna jump in.
I think I'm seeing a thing happen where you give it a day and then you give up. So
yeah, I'm very impatient.
Sorry. I'm hearing myself, and I think I'm sounding more mean than I mean to. So
No.
I want to apologize if that's if that comes across that way, because I don't mean it to.
No, hey, Paul,
So-
Paul, we've never met, but we're friends, okay?
I thought so. I'd rather err on the side of friendliness. So,
I'd shake your hand, but hey, whatever.
Well, as the moderator of this particular hangout, I'm just gonna say, you know what? I don't think it really matters what platform you're using in the toolbox. So you use what you're comfortable with and what works. On my side, that's Mac. On somebody else's side, that could be Windows. I'm not one of those diehard guys like the phone ads where the two sides get in this brutal war because the other side is a competitor. So you use what works for you. I put a ProPresenter system running on a Mac into a live production system as a lower third generator. Popped it into the switcher as a linear key, and Bob's your uncle. It was great. If your solution is working for you, TC, I'm not the person to say, well, you're doing it wrong. Because it works for you. You found a solution that works for you, and it's not up to me or really anybody else, frankly, to poo-poo on that and say you're wrong. So, I just want to say thanks for hanging out, guys. That's really all that I have. But I want to ask one more question, and that is this Hangout idea, is this concept, is this appealing to you to do in the future? Would you rather just kind of call this a one-off and go on our merry way? Or, is this something that we'd like to do maybe once a month?
I'm game.
I like it. I wouldn't mind a little earlier in the day. An hour earlier.
Yeah, we can definitely take that under advisement. What I'd like to request is, Jeremy, maybe you can help me out here. Are they able to, after the Hangout is over, can they comment on the event?
Yeah. So the way that it works is it automatically goes on to YouTube, and so they can comment on the YouTube part of it, which I would automatically get a notification. Or we're also going to just put up a quick script of who was part of the Hangout and some of the topics we talked about with the time code on it. And we're just going to have that in the as a post in Church Tech that people can watch there and comment there as well. I would actually encourage people comment on the Church Tech Google Plus community so that we can have an interaction there, just so that we can have all that. But yeah, it's a great place to be able to comment. And I think also to mention, if we do this again, there's 5 more spots on here. We could have 5 more people join the conversation if people want to join in.
Yeah, absolutely. Talking about doing it again, are you guys able to maybe do something in mid-November, like the 14th? At this point?
November 14th is my birthday.
As long as that's...
Oh.
Yeah, November 14th is my daughter's birthday, too.
Oh, man.
So your parents... Okay, sorry. Just
It
did
is
a
not,
quick
it is
mental
not my
math.
birthday, if anybody cares.
Well, I'll tell you what. Why don't I toss another date out, and we can just have a back and forth, and we will settle sometime in the near future. Does that
Great.
work?
That sounds great.
Excellent.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
I loved it. If it's okay, I'm gonna embed this on my blog too. If that's cool with you, Jeremy. It was fun.
Yeah, definitely. And I would say just put the link to the Church Tech community and have the conversation there, just so we're all in on the conversation.
Will do.
Cool.
excellent. Well, once again, thank you guys. Jeremy, thank you again for running the tech and the behind the scenes. And Paul, Steve, TC, it's been awesome.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.